Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So I don't think I know the best way to cover this topic. I really don't, because it's so vast that clearly it needed to be in multiple videos. But by that same token, there was no easy way to cut this up without covering multiple angles and without trying to find the best way of telling the story coherently. So, I'm telling the story of the fall of Titan and all of its weird secrets and mysteries in 3 parts. And I'm gonna do 3 weird offshoots, and yeah, I've already rewritten this script like twice. So that's fun. Anyway, I eventually landed on this format here. We're going to talk about characters and occasionally about perspectives, because there are some important ones to understand for the fall of Titan to make sense. When I first started writing these, I didn't know how many videos I'd make on the topic, so I figured I'd just write until it made sense to stop, and I landed on 3 different videos. This first one is the shortest, the other 2 are pretty long, so yeah, buckle in for those particular ones. But I think that this is the best way to give you all the complete picture. We're telling the perspective of characters and their stories. With all that said, the sources we're looking into for these videos and the story that they tell include the lore tab of Centrifuge, the Titan-specific destination armor, the entirety of the Last Days on Kraken Mare lorebook, and the new lore entries from the NPA Weirwalker armor, and the weapon entries from Ghosts of the Deep, and a few other sources here and there, I'm sure. We're going to start with our story today, talking about Asa's time in the Golden Age, and what happened to her during the collapse and the fall of Titan. And unfortunately, our story begins with a warning that falls on deaf ears. A warning that Asa could have probably given 1,000 times, and yet it still might have been ignored. So, Asa's time in the Golden Age is something that previously I stated couldn't have happened, because there was no lore written about it. In short, I need to stop being so definitive with my words. Past me, current me, and future me are all pretty fallible, it seems. Yeah, before we get into this, let's also state that there were some moments where I talked about the lore of Dr. Pell, and I totally missed some lore that's very easily accessible in my Centrifuge video. My bad. That includes the Titan destination armor, which we'll be covering in another video, but again, that's my bad. Regardless, today's story does include all of that lore, and it's not about Dr. Pell, this time it's about Asa. Regardless, she's our first perspective, and we really need to talk about how she got to Titan in the first place before we do any of this. That is explained luckily in this Shahan scuba shell, the appropriate excerpt of which sees Sloane experiencing Asa's memories. That excerpt reads as follows. Sloane tumbled through timeless alien remembrances. She was shown them, spoke of them, as if they are her own. Origins and sorrows she now shared. Witness offers powerful curse. A lust, masquerading as love. Sloane exhaled hard, but Asa maintained her gaze, and Sloane was swept back into the current. A blade with ambition. I don't understand. Flashes of fratricidal frenzy ensue, a slither mass carnage. Those once ever bonded now drive fang and lash of tail. Proclaim deep magics once thought too cruel to utter, all in pursuit of a sacred, gifted logic. Vortexes that drink empty fathoms of encrimsoned fundament sea churn above the fray. Asa cannot escape the writhe without unraveling from her captors with violence. She stains her fangs with the flesh of siblings turned rivals. Blood betrays blood to prove strength. Survival is pain. Asa flees, familial aftertaste fresh in her mouth. She would never know love again. This gift sours theirs, makes it vicious and hungry. Rejected logic, hunted as traitor, lost like You. Asa dives into an ascendant dream. Cosmic language bathes her as she ventures. Radio songs and magnetic roars that bellow across space. She slips between worlds across great distances, reaches back into space to glide along the curvature of galaxies, chasing a distant point of light, a solar opposite to that which takes love. Sloane gasped for air. She came here for a chance to live. Asa crashes through Titan's thick skin and into its methane sea. The expansion of humanity across Sol unfolds as she mourns. Within a golden age, a bond is found. The collapse found them. A bond is lost. She wages a battle of grief, fights against nightmares of despair. It's really all in those last few paragraphs that Asa really shows Sloane what happened and how she made her way here. The key thing to note about all of that is during the Golden Age, there is a moment when Asa seemingly made a bond of sorts, which was lost during the collapse. The bond is something that we get a potential glimpse at thanks to the exploration of Sloane on Titan. Her mission during the exploration while the Witness had abducted Titan saw her reach into the depths of Titan's old arcologies. Within, she found various rifts in time that would give a little more information on Asa and the Golden Age researchers who found her, including the words of a certain Dr. Gideon Tepin. The excerpt showing all this reads as follows. Johan rose into view. "Do you hear that?" "Was about to ask you," Sloane said, standing. She snatched, first in, last out, from a stow locker, racked the foregrip, then followed the voice down a barnacle-crusted causeway to an old research lab with Johan in tow. Fluid trickled down cracked walls surrounding rows of dead monitors. Glass reflected prismatic color from a gnarled tear in reality at the lab's center, as if it had been carved from another epoch and affixed to this one. A human that didn't seem to notice them paced within the tear, standing in a fully functioning mirage of the arcology. Once he turned toward them. The tear spasmed and lurched forward and backward in time at erratic durations and speed. He was ripped both ways into non-existence as the tear flittered through events like a fourth-dimensional montage. The tear held steady again, returning the man and his moment to existence. Johan took note of the badge on his coat that read, Gideon Tepin, NPA, Senior Marine Biologist. Tepin looked upset and turned away before speaking. "She's afraid. That's why we're all having them. Something's wrong. She's showing us what's coming in plain view." The man angrily swiped his hand through the air in Sloane's direction. "It's like she's screaming it into my head. I know I'm not the only one hearing it." "It chose us." He stepped forward and placed his hand on the border between then and now. "I'm dreaming my own memories, but with little differences, little omens, black ships in the sky." Sloane leaned forward, hand nearly pressed to that of the living memory playing out before her on the other side of the tear. "She's trying to warn us. We should evacuate. We have to get her." The tear lurched again, ripped away, lost in the rushing passage of time, and blinked into non-existence. Gone. Sloane dropped her hand, jaw clenched. "See if you can dig up any arcology records on this." "That marine biologist, Tepin, was he in some sort of captured time fluctuation? Is that even possible?" Sloane asked. I've never seen anything like it, Shahan said. I'm not really sure. Shahan skimmed archived reports. It's under T-Lev-01. Looks like a psychic space whale some biologists were studying out in the ocean. They never got accurate measurements, but this estimate can't be correct. Over 150 meters? Report says it wasn't from here, though, and refers to a lot of visions that the personnel were having, which is odd. Not a lot of alien species in Sol until after the Golden Age. I was having dreams while I was out, Shahan, of some other world. The pyramid on Titan, the tower, like I remembered being there for each one. Well, I guess it could be an ancient space whale, or sometimes the Traveler gives people dreams. But are we going to ignore the obvious, you were rendered unconscious by a pyramid wave explanation? No. But we've seen enough weird not to knock it, Sloane sighed. Sure, I'll log that away, Shahan said. You know, the readings coming from inside that field Teppan was in were consistent with atmospheric records on Titan during the collapse. What does that mean? Sloane looked back to the spot of warped space-time. Was he real? I don't know. I just know it wasn't a simulation. Dr. Gideon Teppan was indeed real, as it turns out. Asa had been trying to warn people that Titan should be evacuated, and unfortunately that warning fell on deaf ears. The people of Titan would not be prepared for the oncoming wrath of the Black Fleet, and Asa was forced once more to watch as those she had grown close to would suffer. Worst of all, were a group of scientists lost at sea in a submersible. Evidence of a desperate gambit to escape the oncoming destruction of Titan can be found in the Cold Comfort rocket launcher. Unfortunately, at least as far as Asa is able to tell us, the scientists were doomed. It's not clear who would be found amongst the crew, but we'll talk a little more about the potential groups of scientists that were involved with all of this on the New Pacific Arcology in another video. For the moment, this was the grim fate of those in the submersible. Do not be afraid. The submersible hits the water at an odd angle, throwing the passengers against the bulkhead. No one was buckled in before it dropped. Confusion erupts from the team of scientists as they begin their descent. The currents shouldn't be as strong as they are. Titan's atmosphere doesn't allow for that. But they are swept away. The pilot struggles to orient the craft, and for a moment they are vertical, able to see blooms of fire expanding above the surface of the ocean. The submersible pitches in another direction, sinking rapidly. They have nowhere to go but down. Hide under the ice shelf, wait the chaos out, hope for rescue. One of the scientists leans out of her seat, pressing her face up against the port window. A shape moves in the dark, too massive to be another craft, too sinuous to be mechanical. The scientist reaches back, blindly grasping for the hand of the person seated next to her. The shape in the sea doubles back, following the speed and telemetry of the current-swept submersible. Everyone sees it now, blocking out what little light is left as they sink past the ice shelf. It dives with them, not after, but with. She will not let them die alone. Asa might have felt the sting of loss before, but her fate is nowhere near as grisly as some of the others who met their end on Titan in the Golden Age. Some of them didn't even manage to live long enough to see the destruction wrought by the Witness, falling instead to a tyrant of another nature. In the next video, we'll be exploring the story of Rasputin and his actions in the last moments of Titan's fall, the last days on Kraken Mare. But that's all from me for now. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, And if you want to leave your own thoughts, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments section. Of course, if you want more Destiny content, you can also hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.